welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Himbar, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be going over my antique book collection, which is all had in here. So, let's get right to it. So I'm going to film the rest of this video in this angle here. So this is the box I keep all my antique books in to keep them out of the elements, keep them out of the sunlight mostly. Now I got this box and these bags, these polyethylene bags from Archival Methods, as it said right here. So I've always been interested in antique books. My dad had a copy of Josephus from the late 1890s that I always remember looking at when I was a kid. And so this is going to be in a weird order. It's just whatever I grab. And so just for those who are unaware, when you are handling antique books, you actually generally just want to have bare hands, but you generally want it to be clean, your hands to be clean and dry, of course. Nitrile and vinyl gloves are good for handling books that would pose a health hazard. And then those same gloves with some lint-free cotton are also good for handling photographs, metal, or ivory. But in the case of just antique books, clean, dry hands. That's generally what you want. That's the one thing I learned from codicology. Also, as far as I'm aware, I have a lot of old books, but the word antique means anything 75 years old or older. So in this case, these all meet that criteria. I have lots of books that are close to that, but that would mean anything from 1946 would become antique this year. So to start it off, I have one set that is actually a box set. It's Andersen's Fairy Tales and Grimm's Fairy Tales. This is my youngest copy here. I got it for $2 actually at a local used bookstore. These are from the 1800s, from the originals. This set is from 1945, so just barely antique as it goes. So you just got the box there. It's a little damaged, but the books themselves are in pretty good shape. This red one is Grimm's Fairy Tales. Got some art here. Used to be in someone's personal library. It doesn't actually have a date in here, but if you look up the information online, this Grosset and Dunlop publisher version came out in 1945. This is Andersen's. They are illustrated by different artists, but just a nice cool copy of classic fairy tales for this box set. As far as these polyethylene bags go, you do want to keep them open. You want to let your books have a chance to breathe. So like this box set here barely fits, but you want them to keep it open. So then now we have The Story of the Glittering Plain, which has been also called The Land of Living Men or The Acre of the Undying, written by William Morris. Now, this is generally called The Story of the Glittering Plain, though William Morris books generally also have a longer title, but generally there's a shorter version that they just go by. So, for example, here you can see it's The Story of the Glittering Plain. 1891 was the year of its release, and though this is not a Kelmscott Press issue, this is a first edition. Coming out in 1891 there, published by Reeves and Turner. You can see the date there in Roman numerals. This is a William Morris book I have not read yet, actually. And it's also one that's in pretty rough shape. The spine here is very much not in the greatest shape, but that's of course one of William Morris's prose romances for anyone that's interested. Below that, we have Wright's Grammar of the Gothic Language. This was released in 1917. I'm not sure if it is related or is the same thing even as Wright's Primer that came out in 1892. I'm not sure if it replaced it or what, but there is an intro at the beginning of this book that is dated 1910. So this is really the only non-fiction antique book I have. I have actually studied it a little bit. I referenced it some when I need to. My Gothic's not very good. Joseph Wright, for those unaware, is one of Professor Tolkien's professors when he was at Oxford University. Coming over here, we have The House of the Wolfens. This is one I actually showed off in my ABC Book Challenge. It was in the bag. This is one that is in better shape. It's got the gilt still on top. So this book was originally published in 1889, but this version is from 1892. So of course this one has a longer title as well, but it's commonly just called House of the Wolfens. And this one is published by Roberts Brothers in Boston. I have read this book, though not this copy. Since William Morris's works are quite old, you can get them online in the public domain. There's no real reason to read this. Okay, similarly, you will notice a trend among these books. A certain author pops up almost exclusively. This is The Earthly Paradise, also by William Morris. This is also published from Boston. And if you look at it here, if you look at this date, 1868. Now, this was published in different volumes from 1868 to 1870. This is a first volume, so first edition. It even has someone's signature in here. Mary, I'm not sure what it says right now, but 1868. So, someone read this a long time ago. This is by far my oldest book. It is 153 years old. And honestly, it's in pretty good shape, especially compared to some others. Though there's also some gilt up there. There's another one of his prose romances. This is one I'm actually in the middle of reading right now. Is The Roots of the Mountains. It is sort of a sequel to The House of the Wolfens, but not exactly. House of the Wolfens and Roots of the Mountains have more historical elements in them. They're less fantasy than they are history, but historical fiction at that. And again, a long title. There's the dates down there. Again, first published in 1889, but this is the 1896 version. It's a great book so far. It's taken me a little while to get through it, since his definitely is full of archaisms and it's not super easy to get through all the time, but great book. Last but not least, also another William Morris. This is the story of Sigurd in the Fall of the Nibelungs. This is a translation done by William Morris and Eirik Magnusson, who was an Icelandic scholar, I believe. This is translated out of the original Old Norse, which is very similar to Icelandic. In fact, I believe, since this is the first part of the Wolfens saga, this is the first English translation, actually, of that saga. So, of course, this is a later publication of it, or a later edition or part of it. It was originally done in 1870. This is a 1901 copy. So there's that. Anyways, I've already showed off the box set, so those are my antique books. And now this will probably be a really short video, but maybe you got some helpful tips on some antique books. And you know, over the next couple decades, I'll have more become antique books. I have books from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and whatnot. And did you learn anything, and are any of these books here stuff you're interested in? For example, if you had an original copy of The Hobbit, that would be considered antique. If you had an original copy or a very old copy of The Worm Ouroboros by E.R. Edison, that would be considered antique. Or an original copy of A Voyage to Arcturus, that would be considered antique. Lots of other books that would be considered speculative fiction that can be considered antique if I had them, and I would like to get more. Mostly like to keep them safe. I mean, I do like to look at them, I do like to read them from time to time, but mostly that I know that this history is fine. Maybe one day I'll donate them somewhere that'll take better care of them than I do. But anyways, this has been Liam from Liam's Lyceum, and I hope you enjoyed looking at my antique book collection. I'll see you next time.